Imagine waking up tomorrow morning to this headline. United States and Israel launch coordinated strikes on Iran. Oil, $300 a barrel, overnight. Stock markets halt trading across the globe. Russia and China call emergency sessions at the United Nations, and the world holds its breath, wondering if World War III just quietly began. This isn't a movie trailer. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is the scenario that top military analysts, intelligence agencies, and nuclear scientists are actively modeling right now in 2025. The question isn't if America and Israel can strike Iran. The question is, what happens after they do? In this documentary, we are going to break it all down, completely, honestly, and without political bias. 1. Where Iran actually stands on its nuclear program today. 2. Why this is a matter of survival for Israel, not just politics. 3. The real military scenarios on the table, including tactical nuclear options. 4. How a strike would detonate the global economy and hurt you personally. 5. What Iran can do back, and why that might be the most dangerous chapter of all. Stay with me, because every single one of these chapters matters. To understand the full picture, we need to start at the beginning. Iran's nuclear program did not begin yesterday. It began in the 1950s, ironically with American help, under the Shah of Iran, as part of the U.S. Atoms for Peace initiative. After the 1979 Islamic Revolution, everything changed. The new government initially paused the program, then secretly restarted it in the 1980s during the brutal 8-year war with Iraq. By 2002, Iran's secret nuclear sites were exposed by an Iranian dissident group, and the world has been holding its breath ever since. So where does Iran actually stand right now? Iran has enriched uranium to 60% purity, far beyond the 3.67% that was allowed under the 2015 nuclear deal. Weapons-grade uranium requires 90% enrichment. Iran is closer to that line than at any point in its entire history. The IAEA, the United Nations nuclear watchdog, has reported that Iran now has enough enriched material that, if pushed to 90%, could theoretically fuel multiple nuclear devices. And here is the number that should make you stop. Independent nuclear analysts estimate Iran could reach weapons-grade enrichment in as little as 12 days, if they chose to. Let that sit with you. Not 12 years, not 12 months, 12 days. Iran has 4 key nuclear sites. Natanz, Iran's main uranium enrichment complex, located 250 kilometers south of Tehran, houses thousands of centrifuges deep underground, the first target on every military planner's list. Fordow, built inside a mountain near the holy city of Qom, estimated to be 80 to 90 meters below solid rock, specifically designed to survive aerial bombardment. This is the site that keeps Pentagon strategists awake at night. Isfahan, Iran's nuclear research and uranium conversion facility, processes the feedstock for enrichment, houses nuclear fuel fabrication equipment. Arak, a heavy water reactor. If operational at full capacity, it can produce plutonium, an alternative path to a nuclear weapon. Here's what's critical to understand. Natanz and Isfahan can likely be destroyed by advanced conventional weapons. Fordow, the mountain bunker, is a completely different story. Standard bunker-buster bombs cannot penetrate 80 to 90 meters of solid rock and reinforced concrete. To destroy Fordow, you would need America's largest non-nuclear bomb, The GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator dropped multiple times in exactly the right sequence from a B-2 stealth bomber. Israel does not have the B-2 bomber. Israel does not have the GBU-57. For a complete military solution, Israel needs America. Full stop. In 2015, after years of negotiations, the world reached a historic agreement, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, known as the JCPOA. Iran agreed to roll back its nuclear program dramatically. In return, crippling economic sanctions would be lifted. It was imperfect, but it worked for a while. Then, in 2018, President Trump withdrew the United States from the deal. Iran responded by systematically dismantling every commitment it had made. Enrichment levels went up. Advanced centrifuges were activated. Inspectors were restricted. Diplomatic efforts under the Biden administration to revive the deal failed. And today, in 2025, there is no deal. There is no meaningful diplomatic framework. There is only a countdown clock, ticking toward a decision point that no one wants to make, but everyone knows is coming. To understand Israel's position, you need to understand Israel's geography. Israel is a tiny country. Its total land area is roughly the size of New Jersey. Its largest city, Tel Aviv, is approximately 1,100 kilometers from Tehran. Iran has ballistic missiles that can reach Tel Aviv in under 10 minutes. A single nuclear warhead on Tel Aviv would kill a significant fraction of Israel's entire population. This is not hyperbole. This is mathematics. Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, has repeatedly made statements calling for Israel to be, in his words, eliminated from the pages of history. Whether these statements are rhetorical or literal, they define Israel's strategic calculus completely. Israel's official policy has always been, we will not allow any hostile state in the region to acquire nuclear weapons capable of threatening our existence. This policy is called the Begin Doctrine, named after Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin, and it has been carried out twice before. Operation Opera, June 7, 1981. Israeli F-16 jets destroyed Iraq's Osirak nuclear reactor before it became operational. The world condemned Israel. History vindicated them. Operation Orchard, September 6, 2007. Israeli jets destroyed a suspected nuclear reactor being built in Syria with North Korean assistance. The world barely knew it happened. It was over in minutes. In both cases, the target was relatively straightforward. Both reactors were above ground. Both countries had limited air defense capabilities. Both were singular facilities. Iran is fundamentally different. Iran has multiple sites spread across a vast country. Iran has Russian-supplied S-300 air defense systems, among the most advanced in the world. Iran has geographic depth that Iraq and Syria simply did not have. An Israeli strike on Iran would be unlike anything the Israeli Air Force has ever attempted. The distance from Israel to Natanz alone is approximately 1,500 kilometers, one way. F-35 and F-15I jets would require aerial refueling multiple times. They would need to penetrate Jordanian, Iraqi, or Saudi airspace, all of which carry enormous political consequences. A study by the U.S. Institute of Peace estimated that an Israeli strike alone could only delay Iran's nuclear program by 2 to 4 years, not destroy it. A joint U.S.-Israel strike could potentially set the program back 8 to 10 years, if everything goes perfectly. But here's the fundamental question every military planner faces. What happens in the hours, days, and weeks after the bombs drop? Because that, not the strike itself, is where wars are won or lost. The United States and Israel have the closest military alliance in the Middle East, but that does not mean they always agree. Every American administration, Republican and Democrat, has told Israel privately, "Don't act without us." But in 2025, the political dynamics have shifted. American domestic politics, the changing balance of power after the Gaza conflict, Iran's accelerating nuclear timeline. All of these forces have converged to create a new and more dangerous environment. The window for diplomacy is closing. The window for military action is opening. And the clock is ticking.
Let's get specific, because vague warnings don't help anyone understand what's actually at stake. Military analysts have mapped out 3 broad scenarios for how a confrontation with Iran could unfold. Let's go through each one with complete honesty about what it means. Scenario A, the precision conventional strike. Probability, high. This is the most likely military option if diplomacy completely fails. The United States and Israel coordinate a multi-wave precision airstrike campaign targeting Iran's nuclear infrastructure. Wave 1, electronic warfare, jamming Iran's radar and communication systems, blinding their air defenses before the first aircraft even crosses into Iranian airspace. Wave 2, cruise missile barrages, Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from U.S. Navy destroyers in the Persian Gulf, striking surface-level facilities at Natanz and Isfahan simultaneously. Wave 3, B-2 stealth bombers carrying GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators targeting Fordow. Each bomb weighs 30,000 pounds. Each one can penetrate approximately 60 feet of reinforced concrete before detonating. Wave 4, Israeli F-35 jets conducting follow-up strikes on Iranian air defense batteries, missile launch sites, and command centers. The goal of Scenario A is surgical. Eliminate Iran's nuclear capability. Set their program back by a decade. This scenario does not require nuclear weapons. The risk? Iran retaliates immediately. And Iranian retaliation does not stay inside Iran's borders. Scenario B, tactical nuclear strike. Probability low, but not zero. This is the scenario that gets whispered about in think tanks, but rarely discussed openly. What if conventional weapons are not enough? What if, after a full conventional strike campaign, Fordow is still standing? In that scenario, a tactical nuclear strike becomes a theoretical option on the table. The B-6112 is America's most advanced tactical nuclear bomb. It has a variable yield, adjustable from 0.3 kilotons to 50 kilotons. For comparison, the bomb dropped on Hiroshima was approximately 15 kilotons. The B-6112 can be delivered by F-35 jets, which means Israel could theoretically deliver it with American authorization. Now, I want to be very clear here. A tactical nuclear strike on Iran would be the first use of a nuclear weapon in warfare since Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Russia and China would view it as a fundamental breach of the nuclear non-proliferation framework. Every non-nuclear state on Earth would immediately reconsider whether they need their own nuclear deterrent. North Korea, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, South Korea, Japan. The world would change permanently the moment that first post-war nuclear weapon is used. This is why Scenario B has a low probability. Not because it's technically impossible, but because the decision-makers know exactly what they would be unleashing. Scenario C, full-scale war. Probability very low. This is the Iraq 2003 scenario, applied to a country 3 times larger, with a far more capable military and 87 million people. A ground invasion of Iran is not seriously on the table for any current American or Israeli military planner.
Iran has a military of approximately 580,000 active duty personnel, plus 350,000 in the Revolutionary Guard. Iran's terrain, mountain ranges, vast deserts, dense urban centers, is arguably the most difficult military environment on Earth. America spent 20 years in Afghanistan and left with nothing. Iran is 20 times more complex. But history has a way of surprising us. The Iraq War wasn't supposed to last 20 years. Wars, once started, follow their own logic, not the logic of the people who started them.
There is a fourth possibility that changes everything. What if Iran tests a nuclear device before any military action can occur? What if, like North Korea, Iran simply absorbs the sanctions and crosses the nuclear threshold? Once a country has a tested nuclear weapon, the rules of engagement change fundamentally. No one bombs North Korea. No one even talks seriously about it. This is the paradox at the heart of nuclear deterrence. The moment Iran gets the bomb, it becomes untouchable, which is precisely why it desperately wants the bomb, and precisely why America and Israel desperately want to prevent it. Every day that passes without a resolution makes the eventual decision more consequential and more dangerous. Let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention in these discussions. Most people hear military strike on Iran and think about jets and explosions. They don't think about the ripple effects that would reach their kitchen table within days. Let me show you why this isn't just a Middle East story. This is everybody's story. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway. At its narrowest point, only 39 kilometers wide, between Iran and Oman. Approximately 20 to 21 million barrels of oil pass through the strait every single day. That represents roughly 20% of all global oil trade and approximately 35% of all seaborne oil. Iran has repeatedly threatened, in official government statements, to close the Strait of Hormuz if attacked. And Iran has the naval capability to make this threat credible, not permanent. The US Navy would eventually force the strait open, but for days, weeks, or even months, global oil supply would be severely disrupted. And in the modern global economy, days matter enormously. Current oil prices sit around $70 to $90 per barrel. A full closure of the Strait of Hormuz, even a partial one, would trigger panic buying across every commodity market on Earth. Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan have both published analyses suggesting oil could reach $150 to $200 per barrel in a severe Hormuz disruption scenario. Some energy security analysts go further, suggesting $250 to $300 per barrel if the closure extends beyond 2 weeks. What does $200 oil mean for ordinary people? In the United States, gasoline prices exceeding $8 to $10 per gallon. The 2022 spike to $5 caused political chaos. Now double it, triple it. In Pakistan, petrol prices at 500 to 700 rupees per liter in a country already struggling with record inflation. In India, fuel subsidies become completely unsustainable overnight. In Egypt, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, countries already walking the economic tightrope, the impact could be catastrophic.
The oil shock is only the first domino. When oil prices spike, inflation follows, everywhere, simultaneously. In a conflict scenario, global investors flee to safe haven assets: gold, US Treasury bonds, the Swiss franc, and the US dollar. This sounds good for the dollar, but it devastates every emerging market currency simultaneously. The Pakistani rupee, the Egyptian pound, the Turkish lira, the Nigerian naira, all facing severe depreciation pressure at the same moment. Countries with dollar-denominated debt would see their debt burdens explode overnight. Stock markets would be hit hard. The S&P 500 fell 34% in March 2020 at the start of COVID-19. A major Middle East war involving nuclear dimensions could trigger a comparable or larger collapse. We learned from COVID-19 how fragile global supply chains are. A conflict with Iran would break supply chains in ways COVID never could. Iran is a significant producer of petrochemicals, materials used in plastics, fertilizers, and manufacturing. A supply disruption doesn't just affect energy. It affects every manufactured product on Earth. Insurance costs for any vessel transiting the Gulf would become prohibitive. Many shipping companies would reroute around the Cape of Good Hope, adding weeks to delivery times and massive costs to every imported good. The countries that would suffer most are not the rich ones. America has strategic petroleum reserves. Europe has diversified energy supply. Gulf states can adjust output. But Pakistan, which imports virtually all of its crude oil, Bangladesh, which depends on imported LNG for its power plants, Kenya, Ethiopia, Vietnam, countries that have no buffer, no reserves, no alternative. These are the countries that would face the harshest consequences of a war they had no part in starting. Beyond the immediate shock, a military confrontation with Iran would accelerate several long-term economic trends. Saudi Arabia and the UAE would face existential questions about their own security. Defense spending across the region would explode, diverting capital from economic development. China would be forced to accelerate its own energy independence initiatives and deepen ties with Russia to secure alternative energy routes. The post-World War II international order, already under enormous stress, would fracture further. A war with Iran isn't just a Middle East event. It is a restructuring of the entire global economic order.
One of the most dangerous assumptions in any discussion of striking Iran is the idea that Iran simply absorbs the blow. Iran's strategic doctrine is built on one principle. If attacked, we expand the war until the cost of continuing becomes unbearable for our enemy. They've been preparing for this scenario for decades. Iran's greatest strategic asset is not its missiles. It is not its navy. It is the network of armed groups it has built and funded across the entire Middle East over the past 40 years. Hezbollah in Lebanon, the most heavily armed non-state military organization in the world, estimated 150,000 to 200,000 rockets and missiles. Range covers all of Israel. In a full escalation, Hezbollah opens a devastating northern front against Israel simultaneously. The Houthi movement in Yemen. They have already demonstrated the ability to strike targets in Saudi Arabia and disrupt Red Sea shipping. In a conflict scenario, Red Sea shipping, carrying 12% of global trade, becomes a war zone. Iraqi militias. Dozens of Iran-backed armed groups across Iraq capable of targeting U.S. military bases and logistical infrastructure throughout the region. This is what Iran calls the axis of resistance, a multi-front, multi-country capability designed specifically to force Israel and American forces to fight everywhere at once. Iran's navy has over 100 fast attack craft, small, maneuverable boats equipped with anti-ship missiles capable of swarming larger naval vessels. Iran has extensive coastal anti-ship missile batteries along its entire Gulf coastline. Iran has stockpiles of naval mines. The United States Navy would eventually force the Strait open, but it would not be quick, it would not be clean, and American sailors would die in the process. In an election-sensitive American political environment, casualties in the Gulf would create enormous pressure to de-escalate or withdraw. Iran demonstrated its missile capability clearly in January 2020 when it launched over a dozen ballistic missiles at Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq, in direct retaliation for the American assassination of General Qasem Soleimani. American forces were warned in advance and no Americans died. But the missiles struck their targets with notable precision. Since 2020, Iran has continued developing more advanced ballistic missiles with longer range, greater accuracy, and new maneuvering capabilities designed to defeat missile defense systems.
This is perhaps the most strategically ironic consequence of a military strike. If America and Israel attack Iran and fail to completely destroy its nuclear capability, which virtually every military analysis suggests is the most likely outcome, Iran's response is completely predictable. Iran will immediately declare that it is now building a nuclear weapon as fast as possible for self-defense, because the strike proved that conventional deterrence is not sufficient. This is exactly what happened with North Korea. Kim Jong-il watched what happened to Iraq's Saddam Hussein, who had no nuclear weapons and was deposed and executed. He watched what happened to Libya's Muammar Gaddafi, who gave up his nuclear program and was then overthrown and killed. He made a logical calculation. The only thing that guarantees regime survival is a nuclear weapon. Iran's leadership is making the same calculation right now. A strike that fails to completely eliminate Iran's nuclear program does not solve the problem. It accelerates it, while giving Iran the moral and strategic justification to go all the way. So, can America and Israel drop the bomb on Iran? The honest answer is yes. Technically, militarily, they have the capability. The more important question, the one that actually determines what happens, is this: are they willing to live with what comes after? The economic devastation, the proxy wars across 5 countries simultaneously, the possible nuclear escalation, the permanent reshaping of the entire global order. The strike itself takes hours. The consequences last decades. We have been through this before. The architects of the Iraq War in 2003 promised it would be over in weeks. America left 20 years later with nothing achieved and a region more unstable than when it entered. The people who design war games in air-conditioned offices rarely account for the human variables, the fear, the pride, the miscalculation, the fog of war. What we do know is this: the world is at a genuine inflection point. Iran is closer to nuclear capability than it has ever been. The diplomatic pathways are narrower than they have ever been, and the cost of the wrong decision in either direction has never been higher. Whether you believe in military action or diplomacy, whether you support America's position or Iran's right to sovereignty, the one thing that cannot be disputed is this: the next few years will shape the Middle East, the global economy, and the international order for the rest of this century. And the decisions being made right now in Washington, in Jerusalem, and in Tehran will be felt by billions of people who have no say in them whatsoever. What do you think? Is military action now inevitable, or is there still a path to diplomacy? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one. If this documentary helped you understand the full picture, please share it. Not for the algorithm, because this conversation matters. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell, because our next documentary is already in production. Next episode: the Iran nuclear deal. Is there any diplomatic solution left? Until then, stay informed, stay curious, and never stop asking the hard questions.